Hello, this is Roy from RPG Training Systems, and I wanted to provide this quick presentation on our workout templates so that you can better understand what this is if you're looking at it, as well as how to follow up with your own training program. So from week to week, from phase to phase, depending on how many days you're scheduled to train, this is what these are going to look like. So as you can see here, we've got three different template forms. Um, in any situation, even if you're working with this just once a week, we'd like you to take on a second day of training on your own to make sure that you're getting a multitude of movement patterns addressed in a single phase. So if you're just lifting with us on, let's say, a Monday or a Tuesday, our expectation is that you take on a second day of training because we're only going to be able to address certain movement patterns here. We guaranteed we won't be able to cover them all. Unless we get into the later phases of training where we might be doing a full Olympic lift that we only have, let's say, one lifting pattern for the day, so we're able to accomplish a whole bunch of other stuff. You have a 3-day program and a 4-day program, and you can see it gets pretty intense when you get to 4 days. The athletes that are on this program are usually in off-season training, where they have 4 different loads or 4 different days where they get different lifts involved, and that's more for our advanced athletes. So let's just use the day 2 or the 2-day example to show you what it looks like. So your phase will be at the top. Down the right-hand column, you have a bunch of different information. Athlete notes is really your way of tracking yourself, any things that come up, any special thoughts or programs or questions that come up. You can write those in the athlete notes. Your goals are here. So whether you have 1 goal or 5 goals, there's a space for you to put them in. And this is important because we want you to always walk into the gym with a sense of purpose. If you don't know what your goals are and you don't know where you're going, it's going to be really hard for us to motivate you to do the exercises that are, I'll call them sometimes mundane and challenging to get through because they're not that fun a lot of the time. I'll be honest with you, but they're necessary. And the more we see athletes that are coming off of injury or ones that aren't injured even, we want to make sure that they stay in that space. We want to make sure that they stay healthy. If you're coming off of an injury, we have to do a lot of things that make sure you come back to game ready as best as we can. So putting your goals down is just a great way for us to understand what your motivations are and how we can help you get there. We put down a bunch of different markers for success. Happiness is at the top. You're a young athlete. We want you to be happy. It might sound corny, but we want really for our program to be able to provide you a solid structure in your life that allows you to live in a happy and fulfilled way. If you're not happy in a given day, that's going to show up in a lot of different areas. Your sleep, your nutrition, your mindset. A lot of different factors are going to be related to how happy you feel. And there's other markers, and I'm not saying that this is the most important, but it is one that we like to take a look at. If you're unhappy in a given day, then maybe you just need some rest. Maybe you need to recover. Maybe you need to go for a walk or do a meditation or a yoga session instead of doing a lift, just to get yourself back to where you need to be. Length of sleep is hugely important, as you've probably heard. 8 hours is the minimal for everyone that we work with. And we need you to get to that level if you aren't already. Quality of sleep is obviously equally as important. If you have 8 hours of interrupted sleep, it's probably not as good as 6 hours of quality deep sleep where you're getting at least 3 to 4 cycles in your sleep cycles throughout the night. So quality just as important as quantity. Get the quantity in there, get the quality up there, and we can talk about that in our nutrition. Pain and soreness. These ones will usually spike on the day after or maybe 2 days after a lifting session, depending on how you go or how much you lift. So DOMS, D-O-M-S, delayed onset muscle soreness will likely show up on the next day. If you have an accumulated by week 3 or week 4, if you have an accumulated soreness, then we'll look at addressing that with maybe modifying the program. And at the bottom, you have your energy system zones. We'll talk about that a little bit later, and then special notes. So let's go up to the top. In this example, we have 2 days, and this might be Tuesday, Wednesday, or sorry, Tuesday, Thursday. It might be Monday, Wednesday. But you're going to have 2 different lifting programs to go throughout the course of the week. You'll notice at the top here, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have your functional movement screen patterns, so your corrective exercises, and or your energy system development. We'll talk about those two a little bit later. For your first block, you have your warm-up. Usually keep it to about 4 exercises. And this is for health, I'll call them healthy individuals. So if you're coming in, you always start with foam rolling, so that's a given. And then you do four, and even we might add more exercises to this to address a lot of different movement patterns to start the day. If you're in early in season, this might be 8 exercises because we want you to be healthy and mobile. If you're later part of the season, the whole program might actually shift to something that looks like a prehab block. So you might have 4 introductory movements, but you might not do as much of the heavy lifting, quote unquote. You might do something a little bit different. So there's 4. You have the number of sets that you're going to do for those exercises, as well as the number of repetitions. So you can see I just copied and pasted this for the template purposes. After you finish your prehab or your warm-up block, you're going to shift into your first block. So this might be a power block if you're in a certain phase of training. It might just be a strength block. It might be just whatever it is. It's the first block. So it starts with a preliminary exercise. And what that looks like in this example, obviously, is a mobility drill. You have your sets here and the number of repetitions. This might be complex where you do 2 different exercises. So you might have a row and a squat. You might have a stability exercise like a plank, as well as your main lift. Whatever the case is, you do this one first, you do this one second. Let's keep it nice and simple. So in this example, we have our barbell BB bench press. That's your main lift. So all of the information about your main lift is in the section below. Okay. To the right, you have your tempo. So how fast are you doing the repetitions? I just typed this in. So 3131 might be an example. The first number always indicates the eccentric. That means you're lowering. That means your body under tension moving against or with gravity, I should say. So with gravity. So let's say in this example, barbell bench press, I lift the bar off, and for 3 seconds, I'm lowering it down to my chest. So I'm going with gravity, controlling the tempo of the weight as we go down. I'm going to hold for 1 second at the bottom. I'm going to go up for 3 seconds. So this is the concentric motion. So going up, 1, 2, 3, and then pausing for 1 second at the top. Now, if we glance over at this example, you'll see it's 2OX. There's only 3 numbers. Well, what's that all about? Sometimes the 3 numbers just eliminates this pause at the top, and that's no big deal. 2 seconds on the way down, no hold at the bottom, and an X for explosive on the way up. So I unrack the bar, I lower down 2 seconds, so a little bit faster than this one, and I explode on the upward phase, trying to get that bar moving quickly away from me. So this is one that you're commonly going to see because we like to control the eccentric portion, especially in early parts of the phase. So if you're very new to training, this might be even higher. But we want to focus on your explosiveness as an athlete. So if this even is 9 seconds or 10 seconds, you're going to have this explosive upward phase a majority of the time, unless we're working with an injured athlete. So let's look down here at this section. So you can see here it's blank, and we've left the load out. Most of the time we're going to leave this column blank because we want you to fill in how much weight you've actually lifted. If you're working specifically one-on-one with us, we might have a specific weight for you to do every week, but that's in that case, they'll be preloaded into your program. So in this example, let's say week 1, that's your first week of this phase. You've got 4 sets, 1, 2, 3, 4 of 8 repetitions. And the load, let's say that you did a load of 135 pounds on your bench press. That's how you look at it. So 4 sets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 repetitions per set, and then you record your weights in the columns to the side. Okay. For this one, we have weeks 2 and 3. So weeks 2 and 3 are exactly the same, so they don't change. Week 1 maybe a little bit lighter. Week 2, we go a little bit heavier, but you can see that we've actually added an additional set. So there's 5 sets here of 6 repetitions. So your job is to complete and write in how much weight you did in each set. Oh, skip over there. Okay. In the 4th week, we have only 2 sets. In this example, obviously, it changed over here. We have 2 sets, so recording your weights to the side. Pretty straightforward. When you go down, you'll notice that that same week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4 are the same all the way down. So this represents week 1, this represents weeks 2 and 3, this represents weeks 4. Okay, our preliminary exercise is listed at the top. Our load for our main exercise is listed here, as well as the tempo. And then in this case, there's a special note. So if there's a special note there, just maybe some quick things to highlight in that phase. Okay, so you'll see it follows a very similar pattern. The number of sets that you have to do, the number of repetitions, and then the load or the amount of weight that you're lifting. If you're doing a body weight exercise, this doesn't really need to be filled in unless you're using, let's say, a band. So let's say this was, instead of a bench press, we had a push-up. And to load the push-up, we used a red band. Well, that's what it would look like. I just used the red band. You might use a purple band or a black band. You just write in whatever amount of weight you've added to the exercise in these columns. Okay. Down below, you'll see ESD. ESD stands for Energy System Development. So energy system development, we look at 2 different categories. We look at heart rate and we look at metabolic conditioning. So metabolic conditioning will look significantly different. And what that looks like, and we don't have an example here, is instead of having a zone or a heart rate zone, which is explained on this side, we have exercises. So let's say we do an AMRAP, which is as many reps as possible. We might have 5 minutes to complete them, and there might be a list of 4 or 5 different exercises that you're supposed to do in that amount of time. So let's say you have, I'll say squats, lunges, push-ups, and rows. You might have those 4 exercises